Hello, welcome back to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name's Ben and I'm an alcoholic. In this episode, I'll be in There's a Solution on page 20. This is part 2 of There's a Solution. So I'll be at the first whole paragraph of page 20. It says, you may have already asked yourself why it is that all of us have became so very ill from drinking. Doubtless you're curious to discover how and why. In the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we've recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. All right, so how and why? The way I describe this, it's like on Super Mario Brothers 3, whenever you could kind of like jump up those little, like up into that little pipe, and then you could choose whatever world you want to fall out in or whatever. You could skip entire levels or whatever. So this is like that. We're gonna do a little boop 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 on to page 62. Okay, isn't this exciting? So it's the very last paragraph on 62. It says this is the how and the why of it, which is the what you might be curious to discover, right? This is the how and the why of it. And the next sentence there says, we had to quit playing God. That's the how and the why of it. So that's a little spoiler. Sorry for not giving you the spoiler alert, but that's what the how and the why of it is here. So back to page 20. It says, if you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? Well, it's the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. We shall tell you what we have done. Again, man, I hope you're watching these in order. The last episode, just I talked quite a bit about that, but again, it's I tell you what I've done, not what you need to do, not the way or any of that stuff. Just how I did it, what I did to get sober, and what I'm doing now to maintain what I have today, and to grow today. Not what you need to do. I really feel like it's important to stay away from that to be a decision maker for somebody else, or to be paternalistic or play God to them, however you want to say that. So, before going into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone, why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer or wine? Just lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I should think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him, but there he is all lit up again. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time. So that's what, non-alcoholics say about alcoholics, is what they're saying there. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. He's saying the reaction that alcohol has on their body, the way that they don't have the phenomenon of craving that develops after their first drink. They take a drink, and you've seen them. You've seen what non-alcoholics do. It's really weird. They might not even finish that first drink. It's totally a phenomenon to me. It's a phenomenon of non-craving to me, So then it says moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome, and may even need medical attention. Man, okay, so now I don't know what the volume or proportion or whatever of prevalence of hard drinkers to alcoholics is, but they seem to be quite more prevalent. And so, I have a hard drinker buddy who, has a wife and a kid and a house and a job and all this stuff, and he drinks like half of, one of the big bottles of vodka, a night. Pours it up to just about full of a glass with ice in it, and then dabs a little cranberry juice, and then just sits there and drinks on it, sips and, nurses it in front of the TV. But he never loses his composure. He doesn't start jumping up on the countertop or getting verbally abusive or anything like that. He just sits there and drinks it. Nothing really ever changes about it. And if he wants to stop, he can. Or if he needs to get up and do something, he can. Now, obviously somebody would have to drive him, but he's still completely operational, which is unfathomable to me, because of how differently my body responds to it. But there's a lot of people like that who can drink a ton and drink frequently. Alcoholism doesn't have anything to do with the volume you're drinking. Somebody might be drinking twice that much or 5 times that much and just be, that's dependency, from my standpoint. They're dependent on this stuff. They're not addicted. They have, zero consequences, zero lack of control, any of that stuff. They just drink a lot. They're just hard drinkers. And because those are so prevalent, I think that it's harder to understand that somebody could drink a fraction of that much, like myself, and completely lose control. Completely lose control of your behavior, of your decision making, and obviously of the quantity that you drink after that. That's the difference, as we're about to see right now. Hard drinkers can always step away, even though they don't want to. They have the choice. They still have a choice. I did not have a choice, So then it says, but what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Okay. Now that is the big question here. That's that is the Alcoholics Anonymous definition of an alcoholic right there. I'll say it again. It says, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. That's it. Has nothing to do with consequences, unlike the medical definition. The medical definition is continued use despite consequences. So this is saying you're just losing control of your consumption once you start. That's it. So that's for the reader to identify with. What happens, and that's one of the questions I ask sponsees whenever I'm doing the interview process is, what happens when you take a drink? What happens? And I'm looking for, this is the answer I'm looking for. They may not verbatim say that, but that's their stories will reflect a lack of control once they start. And then we obviously can proceed with the process and stuff. But I never try to diagnose somebody as an alcoholic in an AA sense. That it's up to us, which is a wonderful thing. It's a very unique disease in that sense, in that we're self-diagnostic. But that's how this works. So, and I'm not trying to beat the dead horse or however that phrase goes here, but that's all you're looking for. Once you have one, like for me, it was just like, oh man, I can feel it through every cell in my body. I just feel alive. My shoulders pull back. I grow in height. The world looks different. And that's not quite exactly what I was looking for, but I'm closer. And the more I drink, the closer I'm going to get to right where I need to be. And that's not normal. That's not a normal reaction to alcohol, because something would hijack my mind. And it was like I lost all decision-making capacity once I had that first drink. Like any kind of discernment I might have been able to do, no matter how smart of an academic or how good of a person, a good of a friend, or a partner, or any of that stuff I may have been prior to that one drink. Once I have that drink, my brain is no longer functioning in the same way. It's just crazy. It's like it brings out all the darkness, in me, and I have no control whatsoever. It just wants more and more and more. And my body just kind of does what it has to get more. And it's an exciting ride, which is why we kind of go back to it, it's like a roller coaster. You know you might die on, but it's so fun. You just hop on it anyway. It's crazy. Why would you do something like that? We'll find out. Later on here. While I do have this body that can't tolerate alcohol, I have a mind that can't tolerate sobriety. So we'll look into that here in a little while. So it says here's the fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's seldom mildly intoxicated. He's always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day, and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. Does that sound familiar to you? Can you think of some examples where some of those things have happened to you? Now that's one of the spots I ask my sponsees that. Helping them to have a first step experience is what I was taught, which is really important. It says, he has a positive genius for getting drunk, or he says tight, but he means drunk, at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be kept or decision made. Does that sound familiar to you? He's often perfectly sensible and well-balanced concerning everything except liquor, but in that respect he's incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities and skills and aptitudes and has a promising career ahead of him. Then he uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself and pulls the structure down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. Does that sound familiar to you? He's the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around. Yet early the next morning, he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day when he simply can't make it to work and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. He then begins to appear in sanitariums. So a lot of people start to, it's like, oh, well, drug usage is in the big book and stuff, and there it is, you're right. But, it's like other substances such as methamphetamine or cocaine or whatever you want to use. You're using it to supplement, to as an ancillary chemical to your alcohol usage. Somebody might use cocaine in order for them to drink longer. You can drink a lot more and a lot longer and stay up and be a part of the party rather than blacking out and passing out, if you're using something like that. Or maybe you use too much of that now and now you need to bring it back down. And so you use, and it just becomes this whole ordeal, where you're just constantly trying to manage your level of intoxication. And I laugh about it like it's crazy, but that is exceedingly common and prevalent. That's where we all wind up. Maybe you haven't gotten there yet, but that is entirely within reach if you have alcoholism. So it might be a yet. I haven't done that yet, but I assure you, like the rest of us, we're pretty good whenever we're practicing, drinking alcoholics at crossing off our yet list. We'll just start knocking that stuff out. But nonetheless, we're still talking about alcoholism here. Alcohol is the problem, so far, later on we find out that we are the problem. But anyways, so it says this is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary. But this description should identify him roughly. Forgive me. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why does he take that first drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there will never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We're not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We can't solve the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for many months or years, he reacts much like other men. We're equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatsoever into his system, that something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. Yeah, I mean, without this program, even just kind of coming to meetings and staying sober off of fear and meeting attendance, I could stretch, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months of sobriety, no problem. But the day came when and life looked normal. My grades would improve, all that stuff, and I would kind of catch up on work and blah blah blah. But then, the day would come when I would drink, and it would just be disaster you just tear all down again. It's just like, what is wrong with me? Like, how did that happen? I was just going out for a couple of beers with some friends, and then, it's so frustrating. It says these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never did take the first drink, right? It says thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Because at this point, you've seen all this stuff. I don't know what episode we're on at this point, but wherever we're at, you have all this stuff, all these reasons to not drink. Well, just don't drink. Just don't take that first drink. I hear in meetings people say, just don't take that first drink and you won't get drunk. Well, dude, it's not that simple for me. I can't just simply not take that first drink. It just doesn't work that way for me. It might for you. Maybe you've got 20 years of sobriety on just don't take that first drink. If that's the case, dude, I'm happy for you. It is not the case for me. I couldn't just not take the first drink. Why? It says, therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. Wow. So after all of this talk, it doesn't matter how much I can tell you about alcohol dehydrogenase and acetaldehyde dehydrogenase and tetrahydroisoquinoline and all this different scientific, medical, cutting-edge stuff of what happens and what's different, these genotypes and phenotypes and alleles and blah, 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 and all this medical doctor crap. Because if I could say all that stuff and just say, hey, man, just don't take the first drink, you'll be fine, and we could just leave it at that, then you can just close the book on page 33. But it isn't that simple for alcoholics. The hard drinker, it may be. And if you are a hard drinker, I hope all this stuff is, helpful. But for us alcoholics, here it is. It's in our mind, not in our body. Our bodies are sick. We're not like normal people. Just like somebody with albinism doesn't have, normal, it's like tyrosinase, I think is what it's called. I probably should have come up with a better example. But like phenylketonuria, they have phenylketonuria. They can't have something or else their body reacts in a really bad way. Diabetes. You can't have glucose or sugar without it not, there's consequences. Their body behaves in a different way than ours. Well, just don't have any sugar and you'll be fine. If you live in America, that's practically impossible. The same thing is with this. Your body is different. Your body metabolizes alcohol in your brain and in your liver differently than people without alcoholism, period. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't drink. But, the main problem here with us alcoholics is that we've got to get better in the mind. That's where we really where the work is to be done in this program. We go to the mind and we go to the spirit and stuff. All this, seemed like philosophical bullcrap, kind of like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny to me whenever I came in here. But, that's the direction we go with this stuff. And so that's where we got to recover. So I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna pick right up in the next episode. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and let me know if you got any questions. God bless you.